All right. Let's do this. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Derek O'Shea Show. It's Friday. Let's have a good time. Let's hang out. Let's do things. Bye.
Welcome to the revolution.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Derek O'Shea Show. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to hang out with me. It's Friday. We're chilling. Let's put some lo-fi on the background. We're having a good time. If you're ever curious what I drink, I'm just drinking sparkling water, just so you guys know. I don't want to throw anyone off. But let's get right into some of the news. To set up everything that's going on in my life. It's a live show, people. That's why most people don't do live shows. It's not the easiest thing in the world. I am the producer, the mixer, and the host, all in one. The host with the most, and it's Friday. Not everything smooth runs on a Friday, but this story is popping in. Right here, right now, New York City is planning on not rehiring unvaccinated workers. The empathetic and ever so wonderful new mayor, Eric Adams, said today on Thursday that his administration will not rehire unvaccinated city workers. Around 1,400 people were fired earlier this year for failing to comply with COVID-19 vaccine mandate. No big deal, because nobody cares about these people. The elites don't care. The people in higher academics don't care. Apparently lawyers don't care. And politicians don't care. You're just our city workers. We don't care about your life. We don't care about your body, your choice. He said at this time, it's not his time, and we're not reviewing it if we are going to bring them back. He doesn't care about you. This ever so new mayor, a new direction from the authoritarian regime of Bill de Blasio. Eric Adams plans on changing so much so that he's continued doing the same thing. He also thanked the more than 340,000 city employees who have been vaccinated, recognizing them for standing up and doing the right thing. That's right. Do the right thing. Follow whatever the science says. Not your own personal doctor. Follow what the politicians say, and you will keep your job. The mandate went into effect last year under former Bill de Blasio, meeting resistance from members of the NYPD. But this is just a reminder of what COVID did to some people. What COVID did to people's lives, what COVID did to your children's lives, what your lives. And I hope and I pray that people going into election season remember, instead of just continuing to vote for the same people, like Gavin Newsom, Garcetti, they actually want a change. Or is America just, they do like authoritarianism. They do want to be told what to do. They do not like being forced to think for themselves. Is that where we're at? Is that where you're at as a human being in today's world? If that's you, I feel sorry for you. Because I think we should be celebrating people for maybe potentially speaking with their doctor, and their doctor might not have recommended it. Who knows? Politicians mandating health practices. It's funny that they mandated this, but they're not mandating, the number one killer in America, hashtag heart disease, as that's being more celebrated by the day of fat-phobic culture or whatever. That it's actually okay. It's okay to be morbidly obese. It's okay to put a strain on the healthcare system if you're morbidly obese, as long as you get the shot. Really sad state of affairs. Those 1,400 people, I hope they moved to Florida and were saved. Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm genuinely curious. Do you remember all the crazy authoritarian things your governor, your mayor, your town council put in place for you to live by? Or are we just gonna do what most people in our culture do today, where it's turn the other cheek, who cares? Please let me know your thoughts. I'm curious on this. Okay, next story. Okay. This is just weird. Now for one of the weirdest slip-ups of the day. Is it a slip-up? Was it on purpose? Was he just gaffing? Was he just bumbling? Bumbling Biden, as they say. Biden apparently tells the U.S. troops that what they're going to see in Ukraine. I was under the impression that we aren't sending U.S. troops to Ukraine. But Biden tells these troops that. Don't just take it from my mouth. Let's listen to Joe Biden himself right here, right now.
And you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people standing in the middle in front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground. They're incredible. And
now, the White House came out and said, this isn't true. It was an accident. But, see, I don't assume ignorance. I don't assume accidental slip. What a weird accidental slip up that would be if that was actually an accidental slip. Saying what you're going to see in Ukraine is women standing in front of tanks, not wanting to leave. Did he just accidentally, quote unquote, release some information that shouldn't be out there? It's hard to say that he didn't. I mean, what a weird way to gaffe, to say something silly. You're just saying things because you're tired. Is that what it is? Is he living in such an altered reality that he doesn't even know what he's talking about in this moment? Or does he know some information or potential future plans that are coming, and he decided to open up maybe in a moment of being tired from flights and everything that's going on? So I never assume ignorance with politicians. I know a lot of people, especially on the right, like to say, you know, these people are just so stupid, blah, blah, blah. I don't assume ignorance. I think they know exactly what they're doing when they do it. And let's just hear it one more time just to keep it fresh in our minds and our hearts and souls.
you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people standing in the middle in front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground.
See, and if people were on the right of the media, people would be losing their minds at him at this minute. They'd say, Trump actually just let out some secret information. What a freaking idiot. But because it's Biden, it's crickets. Because it's Biden, they put out information saying it was an accident. A little slip up. We have no intention of sending our troops to Ukraine. So shut your mouth and don't look into it. Is this war ramping up? Are we actually getting more involved than we ever thought or could imagine? As I've always said, we're constantly pretending that we're not actually involved in World War III. We're not actually involved in this war at all. We're pretending that we're 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Constantly in this intervention as we think that nothing's going to happen to us. We're just going after Russia economically. They're not going to come after us in any capacity. They're not going to come at us at any point. Why wouldn't they? Their economy is being trashed to the point where they have to switch over to different currencies or force other countries to make new alignments with new countries who we used to think were our friends, like India, places like that. So let me know your thoughts on this. I do not assume ignorance ever with our politicians. I just don't. I don't think they're as stupid as people think they make out to be. I think they know exactly what they're saying and why they're saying it. I think they're being, told what to say in a lot of ways. And I think Joe Biden was probably told some information and he let slip in this moment. And it was put out on the internet and they freaking out and they had to put out a statement saying otherwise. But let me know your thoughts on this because I'm curious your thoughts on this. Get in the comments below. All right, next story. All right, next story. Ron DeSantis comes out per usual and triggers everyone on the left. He's attacking my children. It's a don't say gay bill, even though that doesn't say it at all in the bill. But you know how people on the left do. Change wording in order to create an emotional draw, in order for you to freak out, lose your mind, and for you to pay attention to the news. That's not what I want to do here. I hope I make you giggle, laugh every once in a while in my silliness. I'm not a show. I'm not a debate bro show. I'm just a show that's just trying to give you some information and hope and make you laugh and then hopefully think. But Ron DeSantis signed a bill called HB 1467 requiring schools to publicly disclose all curriculum to parents. This is something the right has constantly been fighting against, is the left wanting to be in control of the school system, be in control of what your kid is taught. But let's listen to Ron DeSantis himself talk about this bill.
That was what they did. And then you had this governor's race in Virginia where you had the losing candidate say parents should not be involved in what is taught in the school system. And so there is a debate in this country about what role parents have in the education of their kids. And I think in Florida, with our Parents' Bill of Rights, with the bill we're going to sign here today, other bills we're going to sign later, we believe parents not only have a role, they have a fundamental role to be involved in the education of their kids. And that's how it's going to be in the state of Florida. We reject those that say parents not only shouldn't be involved, there's some say parents don't even have a right to know what is being taught in this. That there's actually some places where you can make serious decisions for these kids and not inform the parents about it. And so that is not going to fly in the state of Florida. We are going to make sure that parents have a seat at the table and that we protect their rights, because nobody is more invested in the proper well-being of kids than the parents themselves. And the good thing is, as we've seen this debate, most teachers in Florida want the parents involved. I know there's other parts of the country there, and I'm not saying that's true 100% in Florida, but most of them really want the parents involved. That was what.
Look, and this bill is a direct result of COVID. So some of the good things that came out of COVID is that parents finally started to learn things that their kids are being taught, or finally started to care. I worked in education for a long time, and I always thought that I found it weird how little it seemed like the parents could care less about what their children were being taught. And so you had this huge shift with COVID where parents started to actually engage more because they were forced to help teach their children. And now you're seeing a pushback where parents are saying, wait, you're teaching my kid this crap? This isn't math, science, or, philosophy, or teaching them to learn better, or a learning style, or a hunger to grow in knowledge. You're teaching my kid about sexuality at first grade and kindergarten. What are we doing here? I thought school was just to learn about things, not to have a philosophical degree that's for college age children, #CRT. So you saw this pushback from teachers, in some degree, kind of understandably so, because it was so long where it seemed like parents could give a rat's butt about what their kids were being taught. And so now you have this huge shift where parents are starting to actually pay attention and starting to actually care for, and I think is a good thing. I think it's almost to the point where it's silly, the point where you don't care about what your kid's learning in school. Your kids are spending more time with their teachers than they are with their parents for the most part. You should care about what your students your children are learning in school. And so teachers are like, wait a minute, why do you care now? Let me just continue to teach your child how I think you should be done, how I think it should be done. See, people in the government don't like being told what to do. They don't like being told the truth of, wait, I pay for your salary. I'm the reason you have a job. The government doesn't make money. The government takes money and then prints money, makes your money more useless. We can go on and on. And so now we're at this huge shift right now where conservatives especially, because conservatives want to be in charge of like, hey, my kid should learn this. I don't assume that my teacher has, or these teachers are out for the best of my students at all times. Maybe, and just maybe, some of these teachers out here are a little nefarious and they want to teach my children things I don't want to be taught or go against my values, which those of you like myself who grew up in public schools saw it our whole life. So I grew up Christian in a conservative home, and when I went to public school, it was the complete opposite. I learned about climate change. I learned about sexuality, to the point where I am not the best writer in the world. I have to use things like Grammarly. I am like a reason Grammarly is in business, because I never learned how to write a well-crafted sentence. And such a basic thing, but my teachers never taught me that. And I wished my parents' generation were more concerned about what some of the teachers were teaching at the time. But I think, like a lot of people, they assume the media, the corporate media, the news had its best interests, our American people's best interests in mind. And our teachers were teaching our kids basic fundamentals like what they grew up in. But they didn't realize you had an entire generation of people who are more of an activist slant, where they decided, I get to decide what your child learns. And so now you have this shift. And it's good to see people like governors like Ron DeSantis who understand the powers of the state and how important it is for the state to dictate the laws of the land, as opposed to just allowing the federal government to run rampant over individual rights. And so he's putting out a bill, which is funny. I'm in contact with teachers in Florida. They're freaking out about curriculum transparency. They're just like, he's attacking me. He's not attacking your philosophy, sure, because you're being held accountable to what you're teaching children. So therefore, you're going to have to actually start to teach kids about math. You're actually going to have to teach kids about real basic science. You're actually going to have to teach kids about fill in the blank. And they're like, I'll teach them science, but I also want to have a lesson on whatever I deem is important of the day, like a walk out in the middle of the day for a don't say gay bill, even though it has nothing to do with gay, trans, lesbian. It has nothing to do with that agenda whatsoever. It just says, let's not teach sexuality to kindergartners through third grade. I would have said it should go farther. It should go all the way to maybe high school, bare minimum, but that's my stance. Call me crazy. Call me old-fashioned. I don't think children's brains are ready for a lot of deep philosophical, especially new definitions that go against potentially what parents believe to be true. So, Ron DeSantis constantly, this guy is full of W's, and I wish he was in every state. I wish he was in my state. Florida, you look better and better every year. I just hate your weather, and I don't know what else to say. I wish you had some big waves, bruh. But yeah, Ron DeSantis with a huge W in my book. Let me know your thoughts on this. Get in the comments below. Okay. Next story. Here we go. Here we go with another CRT isn't real story. Wisconsin school district claims white students can't face discrimination. and I'm going to fill in the blank without actually reading the article yet. I'm going to assume it, but we're going to read it together, is that because white people have the power in the country, therefore, even if they're discriminated against, racially abused, there's still a power dynamic, and therefore they're not actually facing discrimination, because in the end they can get whatever they want, blah blah blah. A Wisconsin school district officially is facing backlash for a white student was not entitled to protection under the anti-discrimination law. Tanya Friedrich, the assistant superintendent of Milwaukee area Elmbrook Schools, rejected a claim that last year from a white student's parent that their child had faced discrimination on account of his race. The assistant superintendent justified the rejection by claiming that the student did not belong to a class protected by anti-discrimination law. That's right. That's right, you stupid white people. You don't belong to a class that is protected by anti-discrimination law. That is only for POCs, and you're not one of them. Therefore, you can be as racially as abused as possible or discriminated as much as possible because you're white. When I thought we were about equality, and I thought it was about unity, and I thought it was about the melting pot of America, the left doesn't want that. In fact, they are pushing for segregation, like we saw all last year with black-only graduations in places like Oregon, Washington, constant groups with black-only students or safety rooms for POC students. They're constantly pushing for segregation. It's like the silliest thing ever. When people push back and say, this is critical race theory, and they're like, that's just oh, silly white people. That's just a thing that students are taught in law school. And you're like, no, this is it right here. The oppressor, the oppressed. You can discriminate. There's no such thing as reverse racism, even though that's still racism. So the student is not a member of any class that is legally protected from discrimination by state or federal law, Friedrich said in a statement to a news outlet, which is like the most insane statement. Imagine saying that about any other race. Oh yeah, that Asian hate standing up against Asian hate. It's okay because they're one of the most welcomed into colleges, so therefore they can't be discriminated against. It's like Harvard saying no to Asian people because of how well they place on their SATs. The child's parents had claimed that the district was neglecting the necessary mental health assistance needed by their child and was deliberately prioritizing non-white students and students from low-income families, which is funny because some of the poorest people in America are white, but, it's a power thing. So it's on you, even though your family is addicted to meth and your industry in which your parents worked is completely taken away and put into another country. The student's race, sexual orientation, and social economic status are what are considered to be the majority status and thus do not have a basis for claiming that the student is being treated or has been treated less favorably than a person not in a protected class, Friedrich told the student's parents, which is so crazy. Because again, as I always talk about before, my kids, saying my kids have a better grasp and a better way in which to grow in America to be more successful compared to Kanye West's kid, LeBron James's kid, Colin Kaepernick's kids. To say that my kids have a better chance at succeeding in America is the stupidest concept in the world. I would say, there is privilege in the world, sure, but the privilege comes with usually social economic status more than just race. It's like you can be the richest black person in the world and you're like, you should still be welcome into this university, not based on your grades, but because of affirmative action. And it's crazy that people will hear me talking and they're like, wow, that is so racist. I'm like, no, you're the one being racist. The district stance was blasted as legally and factually wrong by the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty, which is good to see, which recently wrote a letter to the district superintendent, Mark Hansen, and said that it was shocking that a public education institute could hold such a view. Yeah, very shocking. But again, not shocking. As we're constantly seeing CRT pushed all the time, especially by academic institutions, especially by schools, especially by people on the left who work majority in our schools, public school systems. Because I worked in public education a long time. Majority of those people there are liberal. It's just, I wish conservatives would actually start caring about education and want to press into schools and make a difference in students' lives. But, conservatives are more bent to one direction than the other, and that's okay too, but you're seeing a direct result of why that happens. He goes on to say, there's no such thing as a protected class in the sense that there are some races are protected while others are not. The letter read, Black and brown students do not have different rights. They have identical rights to white students and must be treated identically to white students. I wish that was the case. I wish we just treated everyone the same, There is certainly nothing in the law concerning a diminished set of rights for those within the majority status. In response sent to March 10th, the district said that the institute had taken Friedrich's comments out of context. Of course, anytime people get pushback in life, especially in politics, especially what's going on in the world, people just say, you're taking me out of context. It's not that I'm wrong. You're just not hearing me right. Why is that always the pushback? We have such a culture of people that are just so afraid to admit that they're wrong. I'm happy to admit when I say something stupid or I say something wrong. And I'm going to say stupid stuff all the time. Nobody comes to my podcast for a moral figure to follow. I don't think anyone should follow anyone in a moral way. Like, I don't think people should look up to other people. If you're a Christian, you should look up to Jesus, not me, period. While the statement referenced by Will could have been stated more clearly, Elmbrook official position is that it does not tolerate discrimination on a basis of race or any other protected class. The district said, Will's attempt to divide our community is wrong. Yeah. Even though they're being called out, they're like, hey, what you're trying to do to our community is wrong, and we'll call up upon Will and cease with meritless accusations, even though it's completely true. And then we have you in, this woman, her statement is clear as day. The student's race, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status are what are considered to be a majority status, and thus does not form a basis of claiming that the student is being treated or has been treated less favorably than persons not in the protected class. She's literally saying that he is not a protected student. He's not in the protected class. And so therefore she can treat him this way. And then she's saying, oh, you're taking me out of context. No. We're just reading what you wrote. And that's part of the vagueness of her statement anyways, is that she's like, I can, because it's so vague, you can just take it however you want. But we know exactly what she's trying to say. And again, this is part of what's going on in this country on that side of the aisle, as more conservatives are waking up to this. Again, care about what your children are learning. Ask your children every single day when they come home from school, if you have kids, what did you learn today? Can I look at your homework? Can I see what's, especially in places like history class, like your sociology, like social studies class, your English class, not necessarily as much as your math class, unless your math teacher is saying 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, then that's a problem. But this is something you should look up and find out. So let me know your thoughts on this. Appreciate you guys watching this. Go on to the next story. Get in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling, how you're doing on this Friday. It's Friday. We are live. We're hanging out. We're having a good time. All right. So I'm going to watch this video. So what's going on right now is that Clarence Thomas, his wife, had some texts about January 6th, and the people on the left are losing their minds about this. Of course. It's like the minute there's anything the minute anything is January 6th related, people on the left start they're just triggered. It's almost like they like the pain. It's like they like the pain. They're just like, let's talk about it again. Can we talk about January 6th one more time? I'm so freaking pumped. But anyways, Clarence Thomas' wife had some texts about January 6th, and they're trying to make it out to where this is a good enough reason to get him impeached. Clarence Thomas, who just came out of the hospital, of course, they smell blood in the water with him being in the hospital. As you saw that, I saw so many people on the left posting things like, sorry you're in the hospital, but also not sorry. I hope you die. Like I saw it everywhere, especially on Twitter. Not needless to say, that's not like the most healthy place to be, especially when it comes to death. God. But they're making a big deal. They're making a meal over this text, per usual. They're creating chaos. They're creating anxiety, raising the roof for that. But let's listen to some of their thoughts regarding these text messages. Of course, they're trying to impeach Clarence Thomas, which absolutely will not happen because, they're so pumped up about Justice Brown that they say, oh, well, we can get rid of him, and then we can get probably another, person in there that thinks exactly like us, who doesn't know how to define what a woman is, that doesn't know, pretends like CRT isn't being taught, doesn't have any idea what court packing looks like, quote unquote. What else did she? Oh, and then pedophilia. We'll pretend like that's not like an actual issue in this country. And then we'll take away their sentences because, they clicked on something and it was just like a click and they downloaded it, whatever. It's like not a big deal. It took 2 seconds and you're taking up about their whole life. But let's listen to some of their thoughts on this because I think it should be interesting.
I'm joined now
or
for
really
analysis
dumb
by former Democratic Senator from California, Barbara Boxer. Welcome.
Okay. First of all, I always judge people before I start watching a video of like their room. Strangers in the Senate. And you've got little pictures everywhere. And she's got a little typewriter. Is that a picture of Jeffrey Epstein next to her? I don't know.
Back.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Senator, this is a...
Also, I people on the left always make fun of the way conservatives look. But liberals, you guys look a certain way too. All right?
Big one. When you saw these texts, what she says, what she was secretly asking the then outgoing White House to do, what was your reaction?
Well, I looked at it from the lens of someone who served on the Bipartisan Ethics Committee in the Senate for many, many years. I was chair or co-chair for all those years. And I would say this. I thought if Clarence Thomas had been a senator and his
Here we go. Here's the emotional pull.
wife was texting the president's chief of staff about overturning.
She just looked down at her script just now. She stopped. She was like, "Wait, what was I gonna? What's the fake outrage I'm gonna freak out about?" Oh, right.
Democracy. Clarence Thomas, if he were a senator, would have been thrown out of the Senate if he knew about it and did not recuse himself from the issue. Researched this.
Oh my God. Girl, fix your mic. That was nuts. That was not me. That was her. Oh my God.
That the Supreme Court's the only court that doesn't have an ethics code. So I thought Chief Justice Roberts.
Right. And again, this isn't Clarence Thomas. This isn't his text. This is his wife, right? This idea that your wife should hold you accountable. They're separate people. They're different. But the fact that it's, because he's conservative, they want to link it because they want some kind of outrage to get rid of him at any capacity. Because again, if it was Ginsburg's husband who had this, they would say, that's her husband. What does her husband have anything to do with Ruth, with baby Ruth? Nothing. But as always, they want to create this emotional pull, this outrage of, I can't believe this sort of feeling in their heart. And they want you to feel that way so that you're outraged and you can't believe these pro-January 6th people who attacked the Capitol and ruined democracy and tried to take over the United States with no weapons whatsoever. These people wanted to uproot everything that we stand for. It's so dramatic, and it's acting at its finest. Some of our best actors in the world are people that go on corporate media shows like this.
Should immediately ask each justice to abide by the code of ethics that applies to all other judges in the country. And the last
Oh
point,
my
I think a
gosh,
very
what is she
important point
doing?
Is this, and this is the most controversial point.
Oh my.
Yeah, we're losing. We're getting a
though-
little. I'm only jumping in to say, I'll give you a sec. We're getting a little bit of interference if you want
Yeah, please stop moving everything around your mic, you crazy lady.
to move the mic or whatnot, and then you keep going.
Okay.
She just does it again.
Even though in our history, only
And
one
there
Supreme
goes her
Court
phone.
justice
Okay, this is so crazy. I can't believe this. Again, I hadn't seen this. I just looked at it and I was like, this is something to talk about. This is so crazy.
has been impeached. And that was in 1804. I still think it would be good for someone to introduce articles of impeachment to lay out this abuse of power for.
We need to impeach him. We had Trump. We'll just start impeaching every conservative. We're getting rid of all of them. They're all criminals.
Everyone to see.
Wow.
Yeah.
So two things here. On a lighter note, people
Fix
can
your
see how
mic.
focused you are because you know the dates from the 19th century of history, even as we have our technical difficulties. So
Guess she was
you're
born
better at
then.
this than me. The second point is more serious, Senator, because I get distracted. The second point is more serious. You believe, and I know you care about this institution a lot,
please.
and I know you've approved a lot of judges from the opposing party. This is not
Sure.
about partisanship. You were in the Senate a long time. You're saying, though, your read here is this is a potentially impeachable issue for Justice Thomas.
I
No.
believe so. If he knew about this communication. And as someone who's been married for, guess what?
Here we go.
60 years.
Wow.
I can tell you by listening to Ginny Thomas through the emails, I could almost hear her. She was hysterical. And it's hard for me to believe she didn't mention a thing or two about that. Now, the Supreme Court, they're not the supreme being. They're the Supreme Court. They still need to have some rules and regulations. It is stunning to me to recognize that they have none. And if they won't do it, if they won't write their own rules or agree to abide by the code of ethics that other judges do, I think also that the Congress should write those rules because this is outrageous. This is an outrageous abuse of power right here.
God.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Supreme Court is subject to federal law, and thus law.
Do you hear her words? This is outrageous. This is outrageous. I want you to be as outraged as I am. This is all part of the emotional pull. Will the story do anything? Absolutely not. Is this story that big of a deal? No. But this is what they do. This is how they keep their audience. Is that they make a small meal and turn it into a feast. That's why they constantly still talk about January 6th as if it is, as they say, as insane as Pearl Harbor or 9/11, which is the dumbest statement in the history of man. It just is. To say that it's on the same level playing field, to call it an attempt to overthrow the government is just so theatrical and so silly. But that's where we're at on like a lot of our media. It's where we're at with a lot of our politicians, is that everything is outrageous. Everything is over the top. Everything needs to be freaked out about. You can't have a civilized conversation anymore. You have to be outraged, period. Let's keep listening.
Laws can be tightened so that this isn't just a kind of a jump ball for most justices to decide for themselves, which brings us to the other expert that I promised. So the senator stays with us. The legal obligation here is that Supreme Court justices don't really have the enforcement mechanism as the judicial code for other federal judges. There is a federal law that applies, which says any U.S. justice shall disqualify themselves if their spouse has an interest that could be substantially affected by the outcome of the proceeding. So if that applies, what gives? Well, for that, we bring in former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, who joins Barbara Boxer.
And this is another attempt by them, too, to make you remember January 6th as if it was the worst day in American history. Because elections are coming up, their poll numbers are just crap. They know they're going to experience major red wave. I've seen more news agencies come out and talk about, we're not expecting a big turnout of people voting. That's their way of saying we're safeguarding ourselves so we won't be hurt. Because it's always when the Republicans win is that it just wasn't a big turnout. It's never that we just need to take an L in this moment. It's never that.
Renato, a lot of people look at this and say, if every other judge has to follow this, why not Clarence Thomas? And the answer has to do with the unique nature of the Supreme Court. Explain how it works and what you think.
Sure. Well, first of all, there's no court above the Supreme Court. And there is certainly a body of United States judges who do set rules for the courts. They've set rules, as the senator mentioned, for every court besides the Supreme Court. And so there also, by the way, is no replacement for a Supreme Court justice. So if a Supreme Court justice recuses, they have 8 votes or 7 votes or whatever. And we've had some controversial calls for recusal in the past, some very concerning situations. I remember, for example, when there was calls for Justice Scalia to recuse himself regarding cases involving.
Which is weird. What do those two justices have in common? I just can't put a finger on it.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney. And yet I have to say I've never seen a case like this one, and so much understandable public concern. I have to think that the justices are discussing them.
The only people concerned about this are people like you, people on corporate media, academia, politicians. They're the only people that are freaking out about this. It's the only people that still talk about January 6th as if it was yesterday. I know you might be like me, where you're just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't talk about January 6th again. But you need to. I engage with left news all the time because you need to know what's going on in their head during the upcoming season, election season. This is what their message is going to be. That's why when I watched the hearings for Justice Brown and watched her talk about couldn't define a woman, CRT, court packing, and pedophilia and stuff like that, and all these conservative pundits were just like freaking out about it. I wasn't freaking out about it because what her thoughts, her philosophy, her way, her foundation of truth and what she believes, how she believes that she should act and see the world, it goes completely in line with everything the left stands on today. That's just, it's not like, and so this fake outrage about who she is, it's just so silly. This idea too that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, these type of people, and Nancy Pelosi are going to put forth a person who isn't so far left. Like, especially then they can like have this fake outrage of like these racist white Republicans hate her because of what she looks like, as opposed to just like attacking her beliefs. But I digress.
Amongst themselves, the impact on the court, but yet there's no enforcement mechanism and there's no way for a justice's decision on whether to recuse to be reviewed.
Right. When you say it's unreviewable, it basically means that we refer to that law and the rules. And a lower court judge, if they don't take it upon themselves to recuse, you're saying under the system that is reviewable, which judges are no different than toddlers in bedtime this way. If you know that you might get in trouble, it tends to affect you differently than if you just think you're home alone. And so given that, Renato.
What? Was that like some inner child speak coming out of his mouth? Just like, when mommy and daddy were gone, I did some bad stuff.
Is there any solution here for a situation like this where I can't, as a reporter, tell you what's in Justice Thomas's mind, and I don't claim to. But as I laid out in our lead, I can tell you that the evidence of his lone recusal in a case that now we learn his wife has this vulnerability on is suspicious. His lone dissent, pardon me.
Yeah, so the United States.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for his mind or what he's thinking, but it feels suspicious. And therefore, I'm going to create an entire narrative. I'm done with this this video. Final thoughts, as always. Election season's coming up. They don't have a great agenda to run on. They're going to continue to lie about Joe Biden creating jobs. Joe Biden, the inflation is not his fault or people of his party's fault. It's Putin's fault. Gas prices are because of OPEC, these greedy corporations. It has nothing to do with, a president walking in day one talking about how he wants to get rid of fossil fuels. It has nothing to do with that. So quit trying to think that I know his words are meaningless, according to Today, as he came out today and was talking about how our U.S. troops, what they're going to see in Ukraine, which was so totally weird, but apparently his words are meaningless, according to the White House. This is where we're at. So there is a new push right now for you to feel like January 6th, praying that any way to take out Clarence Thomas so they can continue to put more people in the court. And with a new SCOTUS with Brown, who will probably get pushed through, of course, because there's nothing Republicans can do, even if they create as much fake outrage as possible. The idea of maybe taking another seat during this time is huge for them. So let me know your thoughts on this. I'm curious what your thoughts. All right. Let's see what's going on in some of the live news.
To hear their game plan.
I probably will be nervous on the night.
It definitely helps knowing I'm going to walk out with Regina and Amy. I mean,
It's different.
It's different.
We're having
power in numbers, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Because if we suck, you won't suck alone.
Right.
With just 2 days to go, hosts Wanda Sykes and Regina Hall speaking to us about this Sunday's Academy Awards.
I mean, I'm looking forward to interacting with the audience. I've watched them since I was a little girl, their movies. It's just so many great moments, musical artists. So I think there's not, I'm gonna lock eyes with the whole crowd if I can.
Yeah. What's been the best advice from past Oscar hosts?
See what else is going on other channels.
Found a way to reconcile it a year later.
It really hurt to see this place that I love so much.
Oh, are you talking about January 6th again?
Disrespect.
Oh my God. I just, okay. So Joe Biden is struggling with the gas prices. Let's see what Yahoo News has to say.
Welcome back. We're getting a check of the oil market, which settled about an hour and a half ago. And WTI crude for May futures settled at $113.90 per barrel, still trading in the electronic market, up about 4% for the week. So this will be the first week in actually snapping a 2-week down streak. So also we got some news today from Baker Hughes. The oil rig count in the U.S. Shot up 7 from last week.
Again, those who don't know, when the oil price goes up in the market, it's not good for us. Okay.
And it now stands at 531. And speaking of skyrocketing oil and gas prices, it's an election year. What's a Biden to do? Drill, baby, drill. And the fact is, Americans need light, sweet crude now, along with its refined product for the gas tank. But that flies in the face of the administration's push for green energy. Yahoo.
Which I appreciate him actually addressing, because most people are just talking about how it's these oil companies' problem. It's not actually Joe Biden's policies or his continual talk about how he hates fossil fuels and how he wants to get rid of them. Even like the clip I showed not too long ago of him walking up to that girl in the audience saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes for us to get off fossil fuel.
Finance's Rick Newman is here to break it down. Rick.
Hey, Jared, something surprising happened today, which is that a lot of environmental groups and climate activists came out swinging against President Biden and this new plan that he worked out this week with some European leaders to provide more natural gas to Europe. Now, what's going on here? Europe is very dependent on Russian natural gas. They're trying to wean themselves off of that and speed it up so that they can effectively start to boycott Russian energy products and make it that much harder for Russia to wage this war in Ukraine. So Biden has said, we got a lot of gas in the United States. We export a lot, and we'll try to get you guys more gas. Now, this is not a simple thing to do, and I'll go into more detail in the story people can find on our website. But basically, Biden is now giving some support to the fossil fuel industry in the United States and basically saying we're going to help you guys out to the extent we can in terms of getting more gas over to Europe. So environmentalists don't like this. They say, no, that's not the way to go. We should be providing more clean energy or helping Europe get more clean energy.
That's right. We should just continue to get our oil and gas, or oil specifically, from some of these nations who don't have the same rigorous clean energy policies to dictate how they pull out their oil. We should just do that. We should get them to do the dirty work for us, like our solar panels, like our wind farms, electric wind farms. We'll get them to make it. Then we're going to ship it across country. And then when stuff breaks, we have to go to them for these rare earth minerals and stuff like that. This conversation about energy is not ever realistic, especially when you're dealing with some of these higher up educational folk and politicians who get paid so much so they don't know what it's like to struggle to fill your gas tank up full of gas or pay for your electrical heating bill. They don't care because they're so rich. They don't think about it. They think, what's another $3-4 more a gallon? Is Stephen Colbert says, I don't care what the price of gas is. I drive electric. Go yourself.
But there just isn't enough clean energy ready right now. And so what's filling the gap? It's fossil fuels, just as it has for the last 80 or 90 years.
Rick, it's Dave here. As an aside, are you rocking a Zoom mullet, which is partied on the bottom and business up top? And the real question I have is there's two dueling narratives on the oil and gas front, which is the administration continues to say there's more than 9,000 permits that the oil and gas companies are not drilling on. And the oil and gas companies day after day are saying the administration is going to war on the oil and gas industry,
which is 100% true. You can hear Biden's words from his mouth saying that. But yeah, we'll pretend like it's just these oil companies. They're not drilling. We have all the permits. We have the permits. It's like, here's a permit in the middle of the desert. Grow your grass. Oh, you can't grow your grass there? Sorry, we gave you the permit.
Which is the truth?
I think I can answer the complicated question about the permits more comfortably than I can the Zoom mullet. But I will tell you that I have worn the Zoom mullet during much of COVID. And as for what I'm doing down there on any given day, I'm keeping that to myself. As for the permits.
What the?
I mean, the situation in the oil and gas industry, I've spent a lot of time interviewing people in the industry to get to the bottom of these types of questions. At the moment, they have plenty of reserves they can tap to drill more if they want to. The biggest factor that has been limiting production of oil in the United States is that energy producers lost a ton of money from 2015 through 2020 for 6 years in a row. There were tons of bankruptcies. And nobody wanted to invest in those companies anymore because it just started to seem like a terrible investment. So what they did is they pulled in capacity, and they've tried to be more disciplined, even with prices going up, because that doesn't mean prices will stay up. They've been through this cycle many times. Prices go up, drillers jump in, they provide more supply, then prices crash and they lose money. So they're trying to be more disciplined about expanding. And that's what investors are telling them to do. We want you to return money to shareholders instead of investing it in growth and losing money down the road. That's really the biggest factor that has been limiting oil supplies. However, we are seeing solid evidence now that we are going to get more oil production coming in the United States in the next months and into 2023.
And Rick, a quick question about electric vehicles. We've seen that internet searches continue to rise as we saw the gas prices go up. What do you think this is actually going to translate to in terms of investment, either for people in clean cars or for more investment in clean energy?
I love this idea of clean energy, as if you having an electric car is pure, just clean energy. Oh, where does that energy come when you plug your car in at night? And what if every single American adult owned an electric car and then we all plugged it in at night? Our power grid, especially if we continue to go more towards green energy, no way in hell would be able to handle all that. No way. There's no way. The strain it would take on our energy grid would be insane. And again, I'm not an energy expert. And I wish some of this conversation would be more honest. You know, I get so sick of, the left points it at the oil companies and the right points it at the politicians. And my And me looking at the situation, I'm like, it's probably both. It's probably a little bit of both, isn't it? It's probably like these oil companies who are told like they're pieces of crap and they're worst people on earth. And they're like, you know what? Screw you guys. If you guys are just going to do nothing but talk crap and get rid of some of our land leases and stuff like that and only put us in these certain areas, yeah, we'll jack up the price. We'll do whatever we want. And then at the same time, these politicians are making life worse and constantly talking about how like evil these corporations are. And of course, they're probably also starting to transition into things that are more what they feel like is the future. And now some of these old things that we still rely on and we still need is not as much infrastructure for. It's got to, there's nothing nuanced in life. There's no like, it's always like, it's you. No, it's you. And people feel comfortable in that. And I hate that.
This has happened before. And the last time we had a gas price spike at this level was in 2008. We did not have electric vehicles yet then, but we did have hybrids. And there was a huge increase in people trying to buy hybrids such as the Toyota Prius. There really weren't many. You could not buy a Toyota Prius back then. There just weren't any around. And we're now seeing something similar with electrics. The problem with electrics, however, is they're mostly very expensive. There are not too many electric vehicles.
People don't want to talk about how expensive they are. Also, what happens when their battery goes out? Because I'm hearing that most of these people are just going to have to buy a new car. You can't like just buy new batteries because the batteries are so expensive.
Vehicles around the price point that a typical family.
Also, some of these batteries, these rare earth minerals, where do you think this comes from? America? Do you think we're drilling for that? No. The green energy people would not allow that because they want to keep pretending like energy is like this free thing. And it's like, if you are for wind and solar, you're connecting with Mother Earth, and there's like no negative input into the world. It's all positive. And it's these oil-driven, money-hungry conservatives that just want you to rely on oil.
They can afford, let's say, $25,000, $30,000. They're mostly luxury vehicles, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. So I think a lot of people are getting more interested in electrics. But I don't think the cars are there for most people to buy yet. So we need more of these.
Also, Americans are so freaking broke, they can barely afford their gas, let alone their grocery bill. So you want us to start buying electric? That's right. Just shut up and buy electric, you poor, broke bastard. God, I'm so sick of this crap. All right, next news story. This might be good. Okay. What is it? All right. Utah legislature overrides a veto of transgender sports bill. Let's watch this news clip.
At the Senate chamber where the special session just wrapped up, the House and Senate voted.
The Senate chamber in the special session
to override Governor Spencer Cox's veto. They flipped enough votes. So the House voted 56 to 18, 21 to 6 in the Senate. The legislature just finished meeting in special session to pass a bill that gives legal indemnification for local school districts as well as the state's high school activities association from inevitable lawsuits. And I have been told by the ACLU that a lawsuit will be filed against the state over the ban. Now, the bill now bans transgender children from participating in public school sports, but in the event that Utah loses a lawsuit, it would default.
I'm sure it doesn't ban these children from participating in sports. I'm sure it just bans them from participating in the sport in which the gender in which they believe they are.
To a special commission that would determine if a child can play a sport consistent with their gender identity. You'll recall, Governor Spencer Cox vetoed the bill, arguing it harmed already vulnerable transgender children and that there were no legal...
How does this... You know, everyone's so focused on transgender children. What about the kids, the other kids?
Protections offered to school...
It's always like...
districts who would get sued. But lawmakers have been facing pressure from delegates as they head into some tough re-election fights. A lot of people calling for an override, and today we heard some passionate speeches on the floor of the House and Senate over the bill, some accusing their colleagues of playing politics with children, while others say that they're standing up for children and girls' sports.
They're both playing politics with children. They're literally politicians making a bill.
Today's legislation before us is very simple. And I will just repeat it one more time. It preserves the integrity of women's sports. The message we come out with as members of the House, as leaders of our state, can be one of, well, obviously the Capitol Hill doesn't care about you, or it can be, hey, we care about all children. We care about all of our female athletes, and we will not just say that we support transgender youth, but we will go to work and go to bat for you on so many issues that this issue will be something of the past.
Now, in a statement, Governor Spencer Cox reacted to the vote, saying, I am grateful the legislature recognized that there were serious flaws with House Bill 11 and for the heightened debate and input that legislators were able to receive over the last few weeks. I called a special session today to fix at least one flaw in the bill, and we're heartened that the legislature agreed to indemnify school districts and the Utah High School Activities Association from the enormous financial burden that inevitable litigation will have on them. I remain hopeful that we will continue to work toward a more inclusive, fair, and compassionate policy during the interim. Again, I am told that a lawsuit is likely. At a news conference a short time ago, House and Senate leaders seemed undeterred, saying that they expect it and that they are prepared for it. Live on the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
It's time. You're going to find more of these bills being passed, fought, especially with this new election season coming up. I obviously stand on the side that some things in life aren't fair. And this idea that you're like perpetuating, you're encouraging like a suicide rate or something like that in transgender people because of not allowing them to play in their sexually identified or gender identified league choice. It's just so silly. And what an opportunity to teach a child a coping mechanism in life, for them to learn about sometimes in life things don't go your way and sometimes everyone is against you and how to deal with that in that moment. But these kids are still allowed to play. They're just not allowed to play on the side or whatever you want to call it, the gender in which they believe they are. And again, these are children. So there's that. But we're in a weird time of that. This is seen as like hate speech, insane, like you're not even allowed to have a nuanced conversation about this because you're all of a sudden you're a proponent, you encourage this kind of hateful behavior. And it's like, what about all these girls are getting beat in sports? Like, it's just like we don't allow transgender women to fight in UFC for an obvious reason. Because men are just stronger. I know there's like this weird sector of fake academic biologists who talk about how like men aren't as like women and men are equally as strong and the same, but they're different. Anyone with an eye can see that. The average man is just stronger than the average woman, especially young. When like, especially with middle school boys and their testosterone flowing, it's like night and day difference, the aggression levels alone. But don't be afraid to have this conversation. Don't be afraid to speak your truth. I think more people need to. I think it's sad when you see an athlete take over and the people to blame are people like you and me, and especially the people in the sport who'd say absolutely nothing, or the parents. And so it takes somebody like me who's looking from the outside in to say something, but that's not as effective as the people that are actually affected the most. So you need to stand up for what you believe in, even if it makes you uncomfortable, period. Those are my final thoughts on this hate speech. All right, next. Oh, Ukraine resistant. That's sad. I don't want to talk about that. Daily Show. Young Turks. What else? Let's check the live news.
The child does. Sobbing. This is a rare up-close look at the besieged port city from a family who endured weeks huddled in a dark, cold basement to escape the shelling. The pictures seem more at home in a history book than a smartphone. But this is...
What's you're doing to them?
Yes,
I can tell it's been hard for you.
actually it is, but we are trying to be strong.
We were there as a new day begins for the orphans in Poland. They put on their new backpacks, having survived without parents, now surviving a war. It is their first day of school here, their arms around each other. They are each other's family, about to walk into their classrooms for a new chapter. And for the young mothers we have met here in Poland, another day too. Without their husbands and brothers, there was Oksana and baby Alexander, now living on that stage in a Ukrainian theater. And the toy given to Alexander from a devoted volunteer along their escape route.
Thank you. Thank you. We hope you go home soon.
David Muir in Poland tonight. Earlier this week, our Lindsey David.
Cool. Let's look at some of these clips from today. Some of the hot clips.
Your White House press secretary. What does that even mean? Sanctions never deter. Why do you keep saying that? He said, well, because you kept saying that.
Oh.
A company called Harry's Razors advertised. For years, a company called Harry's Razors advertised in the Daily Wire. Then Harry's, like Gillette and so many other companies in this country, went politically insane. Harry's announced it was cutting advertising with the Daily Wire because the Daily Wire believes in the concept of biological sex, and Harry's denounced that belief as, quote, inexcusable. So rather than complain about this, the CEO of the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, came up with an alternative. He started his own razor company. It's called Jeremy's Razors. It's already more popular than Harry's. We haven't tried the razor, can't vouch for the razor. We can't tell you the launch ad, one of the best ever made. Here's part of it.
If you've had enough of the woke bull and you're tired of paying companies like Harry's and Gillette to hate you, then buy my new razor instead. Behold, Jeremy's razors. Yes, they're real. Yes, they're fabulous.
Shut up and shave. You should watch the whole thing. It's worth it. Jeremy Boring is the CEO of the Daily Wire.
Shave.
Happy to have him join us now, Jeremy. I just love this whole thing. You decided to start your own razor company. And just to confirm, you really have started your own razor company.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. We've absolutely started our own razor company, and in our first 72 hours, we've sold 30,000 razor kits and razor blade subscriptions.
Oh, my God.
So great. And I just love it because you're not just complaining, you're providing an alternative, and I just think it's beautiful. How has Harry's responded?
Well, thank you. That's it for me. Yeah. Well, I haven't heard a direct response from Harry's other than one of the Jandies who runs the place mumbled off something about hate speech, but for the most part, they've kept their mouths shut.
So I interrupt you. You said that's the whole thing for you.
If you don't know the word, yeah, if you don't know the word Jandy, it's a virtue signaling coward who bends their knee to the woke mob. It's also Jeff and Andy, the co-CEOs of Harry's Razors. Just a little piece of vernacular you may not have picked up on yet.
Oh, it's so great. I really, really hope this has an effect. What's it like running a razor company? I guess you probably didn't expect to be doing this.
Well, this is just it. I mean, the commercial was so important to me. I wanted to make a statement as much as anything because I'm tired of first, I'm tired of virtue signaling companies like Harry's assuming that everyday Americans have no economic alternative, so they just insult us any chance they get. But I'm also tired of this sort of nonprofit mentality on the right that responds to every attack with the same tired sort of cycle of lose, complain, and beg for donations. That's just a recipe for failure. We have to be constructive. We have to be building a future. And I wanted that to be the statement that we made. And I thought if we actually sell some razors, that'll just make the joke that much funnier. And boy, have we sold razors. Like I say, 30,000 in the first 72 hours. So we're the dog who caught the car. We're having to learn how to chew through steel and stand up an actual razor company, which we are doing. The razors will be delivered before Father's Day. It's a great razor. It's a great shave balm. And I think we're going to make a great company out of it and maybe change the way that conservatives think.
Yes. Can you, and you got to be pretty busy right now since you're the CEO of the company and of a razor company, but can you imagine other areas where people who are frozen out of this weird religious cult that's taken over the left could, start new product lines?
Well, I think there's so many opportunities out there. Listen, the left is bifurcating the culture, again, because they just assume that we have no alternative but to give them our money anyway. So my view is we need to bifurcate the economy. We need to make it hurt. Boycotts don't do it, right? Boycotts are temporary. They're ineffectual because at the end of the day, we still have to buy those products because we need good products. We need good entertainment. We need good news. We need good content. So we keep giving them our money. But we don't have to. If we're proactive, if we build things, we'll actually put them in a position, once again, where they have to compete for our business. And so by actually tearing things further apart, I think there's actually a path to bring things back together in the long run.
Yeah, and conservatives are supposed to be good at business anyway, right? I thought. I guess. I think it's a really inspiring story, and we're just wishing you.
I wonder where he gets his razors from. I hope it's American, not just China.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, here's Joe Biden. He doesn't just get ice cream with people; he gets pizza.
Anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you. And
come on, man.
Stephen just started.
They're starting to eat and they're doing a little bit closer.
Well, if you're starting to eat, I'm going to sit down and have something to eat. Is that all right?
You're not invited.
We got the pizza.
Pizza?
It's Thursday. We wear green.
That one has jalapenos. This one is
I'm watching so many people on the left just like praise this as if this what makes a good president. If you can get pizza with the troops, you can bring civility back into the White House. Oh my gosh, what does he smell like? Oh yes, here we go.
Doctor, as you're aware, Mayor Eric Adams in New York City is getting a collective Bronx cheer for what some people say is a double standard on vaccinations, lifting them for athletes and some entertainers, but not for everybody else. How do you feel about that?
Well, Neil, that's obviously a delicate situation in New York. I really don't want to be out there.
Fauci is back.
As a New Yorker yourself, Doctor, as you're aware, Mayor Eric Adams in New York City is getting a collective Bronx cheer for what some people say is a double standard on vaccinations, lifting them for athletes and some entertainers, but not for everybody else. How do you feel about that?
Man.
Well, Neil, that's obviously a delicate situation in New York. I really don't want to be out there outguessing the mayor, who I'm sure is trying to do what's best for the city, but he made that decision to pull back on the requirement for vaccination for certain entertainers and sports figures in some of the athletic teams. I mean, as you mentioned, there is a pushback on that might be unfair to others, but
because it is.
I'm not there on the ground in New York. I don't have a good feel for what the situation is. So it really is a tough problem. So
what a BS answer.
I'd rather not.
Why couldn't it be for everybody, Doctor? I guess I'm saying if you're going to not require vaccinations.
I don't know, Neil. I'm not an actual doctor.
For athletes and entertainers, do the same for everybody else. Or if you are, include the athletes and the entertainers. Be consistent.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, again, Neil, I don't want to be taking sides on that. I think that the mayor,
because I agree with his policy,
had a difficult decision to make, as you mentioned when you introduced the topic.
It's weird. You feel very inclined to talk about it when conservative or like Florida talks about opening stuff up, but you know, when it's your boy, not gonna say nothing. All right, what's this? The idea you're, oh, okay. We just can't get rid of this guy.
This whole shift, when you first started, you were an international rock star. You were
oh my God, gross.
Featured in entertainment magazines. You cross lines from.
He's like, yeah, I know. I also threw a pitch. You remember that?
Far from just a top doctor to a cult following, and then.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
And the pendulum shifted along with the increase in cases and the second doubts and questions about you. Did you look at that and experience that and say, this has not been worth it?
No, Neil, I think you need.
No, it's been totally worth it. I've gotten so much money, and now I'm getting speaking fees at places like Princeton right now as they're inviting me.
To get a perspective from how I look at it. I'm a physician. I'm a scientist.
When's the last time you saw a patient, Mr. Fauci?
Direct a very important institute, one that has been responsible for the most part for the development of the vaccines that have saved.
Any other developments you want to talk about? Maybe confess.
Saved millions of lives already. I don't think about it in terms of being a cult person and everybody idolizing me and being a controversial, polarizing figure where other people, you know.
That's right. I'm above reproach. I don't look at all the haters out there. I know people hate me, but they hate me because they want to be me. They hate me because they love me.
You know, do the kinds of things that we've been talking about attacking me. Either end of that spectrum, to me, is irrelevant, Neil. My job is what's important.
My Disney documentary is what's important.
And that is, which I've done for now almost 40 years as director of the Institute.
Highest paid person in our government, right? Yeah.
Making my goal the preservation and the protecting of the health of the
Beagles.
American people and indirectly the health of the rest of the world, because the United States plays such an important role. So the idea when you're idolized or you're demonized, I mean, that's just a reflection of what's going on in society and really has very little to do with what I am and who I am and what I do. So you may not believe it or appreciate it, but all of that other stuff is irrelevant. It's my job and what I do that's important.
Oh, please. Don't ever forget this man said, to question me is to question the science. I'm Dr. Fauci. I'm an incredible human being. If you're against me, it's because you don't know. Well, you don't follow my drink, what I tell you to drink. Put your hands up and worship me and take pictures of me. And I'm a Fauci ouchie. Okay. Here's Fauci asking what it's going to be like if he gets this subpoenaed.
So if they were to subpoena you, doctor, if they had control of the Senate and one of these, I mean, would you go?
Well, I always...
Why would I get subpoenaed?
Abide by the natural lawful things. I mean, if one gets subpoenaed, one goes in front of the...
Right. Nobody follows the law as well as you, sir.
Congress.
But you wouldn't avoid it, in other words, if it came to that.
Well, I'm not sure what you're asking. I mean, I've never avoided anything that had to do with congressional oversight, and I have no intention of avoiding it.
Okay,
But
so
that's
what they were
not gonna
doing, I'm
influence
belaboring
whether
a point, and I don't mean to belabor this, but I just want to be clear that if they were to look into the origins of this virus, hold special hearings on that, and say, Dr. Fauci, we want you down here to talk about this, you would say?
I do it, but Neil, I'm doing that already. So it isn't what I would do. I'm doing that already. I've testified before multiple hearings, and I will continue to do that. So this isn't anything new. And again, that has nothing to do with how long I stay in the government or not. It's completely unrelated.
Awkward. God, we just can't get rid of this guy.
You're 81 years young. You weren't looking for that, but you recently had said, I believe, in an interview on ABC with George Stephanopoulos about the issue of retirement came up. You're 81 years young. You weren't looking for that, but I then started thinking about what could happen in the next few months, or if Republicans take control of Congress or the House and or Senate, you would most likely be a target of hearings and them going after you. Are you ready for that? Do you fear that? Do you think that you could handle that? Where are you on this?
Well, first of all, I have absolutely nothing to hide or nothing to be concerned about of anything that I've done. So I never have been, am not.
Exactly. He's flawless
now, and will never be afraid of hearings done in good faith.
As long as Rand Paul doesn't show up. That son of a gun.
Oversight. I mean, obviously, if you looked at some of the hearings, they've started off out of nowhere to be ad hominem attacks without even...
Oh, attacks. Is there a reason for those?
Asking a reasonable question. And you've known that. You've seen that, the clips of that, Neil. That's not in good faith.
Are you referring to more to Rand Paul? You're Senator Rand Paul, who just said that you were deemed...
Yeah. And who's ready for that Fauci, Rand Paul, UFC fight?
Dictator in chief on these matters.
Yeah, or starting off the conversation by saying, how do you feel about being responsible for the death of 5 million people, which is absolutely preposterous and slanderous. So, but anyway, your question is my decision about career and what I'm doing, about what my role would be, is not at all influenced by any concern about hearings or attacks. I get attacked now, and I continue to do my job. I have nothing to hide and certainly nothing to fear.
Sure. I guess time will tell. God. Another one.
You know, we might be treating this like we do. When it comes to where we stand in this battle, last time we chatted, you talked about the idea that, we might be treating this like we do the flu and a shot every year, but now you have companies like Moderna and Pfizer talking about up to 4 shots if you include a couple of booster shots. I mean, how far does this go? A lot of people are just confused.
Neil, we don't know. We do know that...
I love a good vague answer.
The protection of a vaccination and a boost does wane.
It's like a Freudian slip.
A study from the CDC and their Vision Network cohort showed that following a 3rd dose, when you look at around 4 to 5 months following the 3rd dose, the protection against hospitalization wanes from about 91% down to 78%. And the data from Israel are even more dramatic than that. So the question is a reasonable question. Do you want to give a 4th dose at least to some subset of the population, likely the elderly, who generally don't have as robust an immune response as an otherwise healthy young person? The FDA is looking at those data really in real time right now. There's also going to be another aspect to it. It's the immediate question of the waning that we're seeing now. Should we or should we not be making recommendations regarding a 4th shot, at least to some subgroup. But then probably the broader question in the long run is, what about when we get to the late summer and early fall?
There we go.
When there will be a considerable duration of time following the third boost in so many people in the population. Will the immunity wane enough that you really would require for full protection to get that fourth boost? And then the subsequent question is the broader one, is how often would we have to do this? And to be quite honest and candid, Neil, we don't know, because this is just new territory for us with this virus. And we don't know, after you get, for example, a fourth shot, will the durability...
I can't listen to this anymore. I feel like I'm getting dumber by the second. All right, I got some other videos. Cool. Let's check on live news, see what's going on.
This Western is a dark, slow burn. And it's streaming now on Netflix. Belfast is the story of a family in Northern Ireland during the Troubles in 1969. Loosely based on writer-director Kenneth Branagh's own childhood. Belfast is available on Amazon Prime Video and Apple TV+. Also up for Best Picture, King Richard.
I think you might just have the next Michael Jordan. Oh, no, brother, man. I got me the next, too.
Will Smith has all but locked up the Best Actor race. You can rent King Richard on Amazon, Apple, or HBO Max. The race for Best Actress is a little bit tighter.
All right, I got some other things queued up. Let's see.
Well, I think what we're seeing is that Russia is trying to make success out of failure. Russia is saying that its main objective is to consolidate its control in the East, which happens to be the only place where Russia has managed to exert some control, and it is struggling to hold on to the East. So it's a major climb down. Nothing like what Russia said it would initially do, which was to take over all of this country, including Kyiv, in just a matter of days.
Richard Engel tonight, thank you. We're learning more about the desperate situation in Mariupol from those who have made it out.
Speaking of Mariupol, I got this cute. First, I want to hear this, how silly this is.
Democratic aisle, only one side of the aisle, the Democratic aisle, that went so into the gutter with Judge Robert Bork that they invented a new verb to bork someone.
I got borked once. Worst night of my life. That's when I decided no more bork dick.
Was it racist or anti-women for them to do so?
I'm sorry. Did he say racist? Racist? I feel like I'm wearing a retainer.
That's why these hearings are supposed to be different, not because people act like jackwagons.
Can I get the racist guy to tell me what jackwagon is, at least?
Okay. Golly. This is comedy. All right. I'm going to watch a little bit of this, see how this is.
This is central Kharkiv, and there are streets that have been completely destroyed like this all over the city. This is a region that has close cultural ties to Russia. It's a Russian-speaking city, yet this is what Russian bombs have done to this area. Timur Belenko, Natalia's son, lived just across the road from her. How would you like your mother to be remembered?
Как веселого человека, который всегда всем помогает. Ну и помогает, да. Она всегда помогала всем, все всегда звонили ей, спрашивали, сестры, братья, звонит мама. Через каждый день, утром и вечером я с ней общался. Если бы я увидел ее сразу, я как бы мог что-то вытащить. А так, сколько, 10 дней лежала там.
Can you explain to the world why people in Kharkiv are staying in their homes?
Они думают, что к ним не прилетит. Знаете, и есть дети, которые бросают их. И говорят, езжайте, молодежь все уезжает. Но вообще все пенсионеры сидят дома, ждут какой-то помощи, может, вот-вот закончится война. Ну и мама тоже. Не боялась, так прилетела. В двух словах.
How do you feel towards Russia right now?
У всех там, боже, там санкциями разными. Пусть они тоже похлебают то, что мы хлебаем. То, что они бросают своих людей, ну, своих детей здесь умирать, это их не проблема. И матери даже не знают, что они поехали воевать на учение.
It's friggin' heavy.
Residents of Kharkiv who've been left here have moved into metro stations, which are also bomb shelters. Parents, fearing for their children's safety, have taken them underground. Alona Artmenko is living inside a train after her home was hit. Is this everything that you brought from your house?
Да, вот столик, посуда, 2 стульчика там у нас.
Is that your cap?
Да.
Can you take me back to that night when the war started?
В 5 утра мы вскочили от взрывов. Мы сразу начали собираться, мы поняли, что это война. И мы собрали то, что могли, и спустились в метро. На 3-й день это случилось. К нам прилетела бомба. Это все, дома больше нет. Так мы здесь вот и живем. Дочка наша была в квартире, она пошла там кое-какие вещи собрать. Ее первой волной накрыло, ее немножко ранило стеклами. Ну, слава богу, она выжила.
After days in the shelter, Eleanor Artmenko went to see what was left of her apartment.
Это мой дом, окна с той стороны. Не очень больно. Это мой двор был.
Oh my God, the destruction in front of us is just unbelievable. Oh, wow.
Это была здесь комната детей. Все, нет ни дверей, ни окон здесь нет. Здесь тоже все поотровано. И
what goes through your mind when you see what's happened to your home?
Я не знаю, как это объяснить. Мне очень больно каждый раз сюда возвращаться. Понимаете, я здесь выросли мои дети, и даже злости нет. Больно, наверное, пустота какая-то.
Do you think you'll ever be able to return here to your home and live here?
Нам бы очень хотелось, но, наверное, этот дом уже не восстановят. Вы знаете, я сейчас сама не понимаю, как мы, даже если закончится война, выйдем, куда нам идти, что нам делать. Наверное, мы сейчас просто хотим, чтобы это все закончилось. Вот. Ну, а дальше уже будет видно.
Jeez. It's friggin' heavy. All right. Save the best for last. All right. Young Turks breaks down why Tucker Carlson manipulates his gullible fan base. This should be fun.
Ukraine. Robert Pope, the man who heads the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program at DoD, sat for an interview with the website Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Pope is the man in charge of securing or eliminating Soviet-era bioweapons, so he knows a lot about the subject, maybe more than anyone else. But it turns out that not all of these Soviet weapons are being destroyed or even secured, and Pope acknowledged that in the interview, which apparently CNN didn't see. According to his interview, Pope said the labs, quote, may hold pathogen strains left over from the Soviet bioweapons program preserved in freezers for research purposes. Pope said that, quote, scientists being scientists, it wouldn't surprise me if some of these strain collections in some of these laboratories still have pathogen strains that go all the way back to the origins of that program, end quote. In other words, because as Pope put it, scientists are scientists, they don't want to destroy all the bioweapons. Instead, they're using them to conduct new bioweapons research. That's what he said. And not just on strains left over from the Soviet Union.
Now, it's fascinating that Tucker Carlson decided to attack CNN in that segment, as if CNN somehow didn't do its due diligence.
There we go. Don't actually attack anything he's talking about.
Didn't do its research and miss this big story.
Yeah, why would CNN ever lie about it or do? They're the most trustworthy source I could think of. You're right.
And he also properly cited where this interview with Pope took place, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, right? Now, this is something that I've noticed disinformation peddlers love to do. They'll
Still hasn't said anything negative about what he said or attacked his idea or his statement. We're labeling him and we're crediting his source.
Cite reports knowing or assuming that their audience is full of idiots who won't take the time to read the original interview or.
There we go. Also attack his listeners. Now we're on a roll right now.
Read the original report. Luckily, we read the original report and we're gonna give you the details right now. Again, this is published in Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. The title of the piece is US official says Russian invasion of Ukraine risks release of dangerous pathogens. Great. Now, here are the excerpts from the interview, the quotes from Pope that Tucker Carlson intentionally left out of his broadcast. So the invasion could also provide fodder for new disinformation narratives around the labs, Pope feared. The Russians, he said, could potentially go to one of these facilities and fabricate something that they call evidence of nefarious activity at the facility. The pathogens in Ukrainian labs vary by facility, Pope said, but some can be characterized as presenting a concern in the Ukrainian environment. As an example, he cited African swine fever virus, which is highly contagious in pigs and has caused hundreds of outbreaks in Ukraine since 2012. There is no mention of bioweapons at all in the interview. There is mention of biological research facilities and how there is fear that through this Russian invasion, the Russians will gain control of those research facilities and either release dangerous viruses and pathogens.
So like a bioweapon.
As a biological weapon for themselves.
Right.
And by the way, that is a legitimate concern. That's the reason why people have been concerned about Russia taking control of nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Nuclear power plants on their own are not a bad thing, right? If that's the way that the country has decided to get some of its energy. But if it falls into the wrong hands, it could be used as a weapon by the individuals who have gained control of it.
What kind of weapon?
In the same publication on Wednesday, by the way, Pope reiterated his concern about what could happen if the Russians capture these facilities. Carlson also ignored his comments on this as well. He said, quote, should Russian forces occupy a city with one of these facilities, we are concerned that Russia will fabricate evidence of nefarious activity in an attempt to lend credibility to their ongoing disinformation about these facilities. I guess Fox News and Tucker Carlson didn't see that. I guess they missed that. They didn't miss that. They know about it. They intentionally left parts of that interview out of the broadcast to mislead the audience. One more quote, Cenk. Again, this is from Robert Pope, who said, we know Putin.
So we're taking his first article, making a story about it, and then not talking about the second part of an article. So does that completely negate everything she agreed with at the beginning? I guess so. Or maybe it doesn't. You be the judge. But I guess Tucker Carlson is such an idiot. He would never just say something to say something. I like that she credited him on everything and pretty much agreed with him, even though she made it seem like she wasn't. And then she put in that at the end saying that Russians could use this as a means to push an agenda that's already been fabricated. It's just like, wait a minute. So we're not taking everything he said before, and we're only slowly basing all things that happen in the future based on this second thing. I wish sometimes I could be as outraged as some of these people on some of these programs so that it just creates more clicks. Oh, man. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys so much for hanging out. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the day, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Derek O'Shea Show.